Hello, baking enthusiasts. Let's talk sourdough. It might sound fancy, but trust me, it's achievable, even for beginners. Sourdough is simply flour, water, and time. It's about embracing the slow process and enjoying the journey. What makes sourdough special? It's the unique flavor. The tangy taste comes from natural fermentation. This process also makes sourdough easier to digest. Don't be intimidated by the thought of making sourdough. With a few simple steps, you can create delicious and beautiful loaves at home. Are you ready to embark on this rewarding baking adventure? Let's get started. The heart of sourdough is the starter. This magical mixture is what gives sourdough bread its unique flavor and texture. Without it, you wouldn't have that tangy taste or the beautiful airy crumb that makes sourdough so special. Think of it as your baking companion. It's like having a pet that you need to feed and care for, but instead of taking it for walks, you use it to bake delicious bread. It's a living culture of flour and water that ferments over time. The natural yeast and bacteria in the flour start to grow and multiply, creating a bubbly, active mixture that can leaven bread. Creating a starter is simple. All you need is flour, water, and a bit of patience. The process is straightforward, but it requires consistency and care. Mix equal parts flour and water, then let it sit at room temperature. Over the next few days, you'll start to see bubbles forming as the natural yeast and bacteria begin to work their magic. Feeding it regularly with more flour and water keeps it alive and active. This is called refreshing the starter, and it's crucial for maintaining its strength and vitality. You'll know your starter is ready when it doubles in size and has a bubbly, slightly sour aroma. This means it's full of active yeast and ready to leaven your bread. This usually takes about a week. During this time, you'll need to feed your starter daily, discarding some of the mixture and adding fresh flour and water. Once your starter is bubbly and active, it's time to bake. You can use it to make a variety of sourdough breads, from classic loaves to more adventurous recipes. But remember, your starter is a long-term commitment. It's not something you can just make once and forget about. It requires regular feeding and care to stay healthy and active. Feed it regularly, even when you're not baking, and it will reward you with amazing bread for years to come. The effort you put into maintaining your starter will pay off in the form of delicious homemade sourdough bread that you can enjoy with family and friends. Before we begin, let's gather our baking allies. Bread flour is best for its high protein content, which gives sourdough its structure. Water. Use lukewarm water to activate the yeast in the starter. Salt adds flavor and controls the fermentation. Your bubbly active starter is the star of the show. These simple ingredients, combined with patience and a little love, will transform into a beautiful loaf of sourdough bread. Now let's bring our ingredients together. In a large bowl, combine your starter, water, and flour. Mix until it forms a shaggy dough. Don't worry about kneading too much at this stage, just make sure all the ingredients are well combined. Now cover the bowl and let the dough rest for 30 minutes. This allows the flour to hydrate and the gluten to relax. This rest time is crucial, giving the gluten time to develop, which will result in a light and airy bread. Section 5. Bulk fermentation, letting your dough rise to the occasion. After its rest, it's time for bulk fermentation. This is a crucial stage in the sourdough making process where the dough undergoes significant changes. The term bulk fermentation refers to the first rise of the dough after mixing, and it's during this time that the dough develops its flavor and texture. This is where the magic happens. The natural yeast and bacteria in the sourdough starter begin to ferment the dough, producing carbon dioxide gas. This gas gets trapped in the dough, creating those beautiful air pockets that give sourdough its characteristic texture. The dough will rise and develop flavor. As the fermentation progresses, the dough will gradually increase in volume. You'll notice it becoming more airy and light. This is a sign that the yeast is doing its job, converting the sugars in the flour into gas and alcohol. Over the next few hours, perform a series of stretch and folds. This technique helps to strengthen the dough and develop the gluten network, which is essential for a good rise and structure in the final loaf. Gently stretch the dough and fold it over itself. This action helps to align the gluten strands, making the dough more elastic and better able to hold the gas produced during fermentation. It's a simple yet effective way to improve the quality of your sourdough. This helps develop the gluten and gives the bread its structure. The more you stretch and fold, the stronger the gluten network becomes. This is what gives sourdough its chewy texture and allows it to rise well in the oven. Let the dough rise in a warm place until it's puffy and almost doubled in size. The ideal temperature for bulk fermentation is around 75 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. If your kitchen is cooler, it may take longer for the dough to rise. Conversely, if it's warmer, the dough may rise more quickly. This could take 4 to 6 hours, depending on the temperature of your kitchen. It's important to be patient and not rush this process. The longer the fermentation, the more complex the flavors will be. Remember, sourdough is a patient baker's game. The best results come from allowing the dough to develop at its own pace. Rushing the process can lead to a dense, underdeveloped loaf. The time it takes to rise can vary, so watch for those visual cues. That's how you know it's ready for the next step. Look for a dough that is puffy, with a slightly domed surface and visible bubbles just under the surface. These are signs that the dough is well fermented and ready to be shaped and baked. Section 6: Shaping, guiding your dough to perfection. Now it's time to shape our dough. Gently turn it out onto a lightly floured surface. Avoid handling it too roughly, as we want to preserve those precious air bubbles. Shape the dough into a round or oblong loaf. Use a gentle touch, allowing the dough to guide you. Shaping helps create tension in the dough, which contributes to a well-structured loaf with a beautiful rise. Section 7: Proofing, the patience before breadly heaven. After shaping, it's time for the final proof. Place the dough in a proofing basket or a bowl lined with a floured cloth. Cover it and let it rest in the refrigerator overnight or for at least 8 hours. This slow fermentation in the fridge develops even more flavor. This overnight rest allows the flavors to deepen and the dough to become more manageable for baking. Section 8: Baking, from oven to golden brown delight. This is the moment where all your hard work and patience come to fruition. The transformation from a simple mixture of flour, water, and salt into a beautifully golden brown loaf is nothing short of magical. The moment we've all been waiting for: baking. It's the culmination of all the steps we've meticulously followed. From feeding the starter to kneading the dough, every step has led us to this point. Preheat your oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, or 230 degrees Celsius. This high temperature is crucial for achieving that perfect crust, and ensuring the bread rises beautifully. A Dutch oven works best for baking sourdough as it creates a steamy environment that helps with oven spring. The steam is essential for developing a crispy crust while keeping the inside soft and airy. Carefully place the dough in the preheated Dutch oven. The dough should be handled gently to maintain its structure and air pockets, which are vital for a light and fluffy crumb. Score the top of the dough with a sharp knife. This step is not just for aesthetics. It allows the bread to expand during baking without bursting unpredictably. This allows the bread to expand during baking. The cuts act as release valves for the steam and gases inside the dough, guiding the bread to rise in a controlled manner. Bake covered for 30 minutes. This initial baking period with the lid on traps steam inside, which is crucial for the bread's oven spring and crust development. Then remove the lid and bake for an additional 15 to 20 minutes until the crust is a deep golden brown. This final baking phase without the lid allows the crust to develop its rich color and become wonderfully crisp. The aroma of freshly baked sourdough filling your kitchen is pure satisfaction. You did it. The smell is a reward in itself, a testament to your dedication and skill. Enjoy the moment and get ready to slice into your homemade masterpiece. Section 9: Essential tools and troubleshooting tips. A few tools can make your sourdough journey easier. Digital scale. Accuracy is key in sourdough baking. Dough scraper, perfect for handling sticky dough. Proofing basket helps achieve a beautiful shape. Dutch oven creates steam for a crispy crust. Remember, sourdough baking is a learning process. Don't be afraid to experiment and adjust your technique along the way. Happy baking!